All right, JTerm 2016. This will be our first JTerm here at MIT, so we're excited about that. So we'll start off with the calendar. JTerm is 5 weeks. Starts January 4th as the first Monday back from winter break, and then we'll go through Friday, February 5th. Um, the only day that we have off during JTerm is Monday, January 18th, which is Martin Luther King Day. The two other days that look like we have off are Friday the 15th and Tuesday the 19th, but those are actually middle school roundtable days. So they're special days for the middle school. The high schools, both high schools will still have session that day. And because they're both Tuesdays and Fridays, there will be virtual sessions, but we still will have school. So the only day that we're going to miss is the 18th. And then Monday, February 8th is also a special day because that's career shadowing day. So students will be in the field shadowing a professional that day. So we've asked students to reach out to family members, friends, close relatives, people that they, neighbors, to see if they have an interest in shadowing or if they have a capability of shadowing that person. And if students are unable to find their own placement, then they can contact us here at the school, any one of their advisors, me, Mrs. DeWitt, and we'll help them find a placement for that day. So that day is off-site where students will all go to their career shadowing placement. And then they'll have an advisory assignment that's attached to that as well. A reflection on what they did, what they learned, where they went, that type of stuff. And that'll be a mastery assignment for advisory. So the daily schedule, this is a little bit different than the first presentation because I actually forgot to put in an advisory. We are going to meet in advisory during JTerm. So on Mondays, we will meet in person in the building. We'll be here all day. We'll have advisory from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And then depending on whether or not a student is taking recovery courses or new courses, their schedule will look a little bit different during the day, but they'll be here all day. So we'll be here from 8 to 2:30, and we have staff meetings on Monday still after school, just like a normal Monday. So it's typical schedule. And then Tuesday, we will have a virtual day, and we'll follow the same virtual day schedule, and that's the same for Fridays. And then Thursday, we'll be in person as well, from 8 to 2:30. And that day we don't have advisory, so we just added that hour back into your content classes, whether that's a new credit or a recovery course. So we'll be in person in the building Monday, Thursday for new classes or recovery classes. And then we'll meet virtually Tuesday and Friday for new classes or recovery classes. And then as we go to Wednesday, that is our independent study day. So students that need to complete an independent study will meet in the building on Wednesdays. And a good guideline to use is around a 75% or higher, but less than 90 obviously, is where you would be for an independent study. And however, with that in mind, the teacher still has discretion on who qualifies for independent studies based on what they know that student needs to accomplish. So just because you don't have a 75, so say you have a 70% rather than a 75, you could still qualify for an independent study if the teacher thinks that's the best option for you. So it just depends on what the teacher says. But students will take one independent study at a time until they finish that independent study, and then they'll move on to the next one. So it does seem like a little bit of a long day because they would be in the same class all day, but they'll still, teachers will still give them breaks and able to, get up and move around, and, students will be working on different things at different times because it is an independent study. It's individualized to what each student needs. So one student could be working on, Unit 1, another student could be working on Unit 3. So it just depends on what that student needs to accomplish. So in an effort to try to help parents and students kind of see where their student might fit, we came up with a couple different scenarios for what JTerm would look like. So scenario 1 is for all of the students that have mastery in all 4 of their classes. So if you have mastery in all 4 of your classes, students are going to take a new credit during JTerm. If scenario 2, students have mastery in 3 out of 4 of their classes, depending on where they're at with that 4th class, they're either going to take a new credit and then finish their 4th class with an independent study, or if they really bombed that 4th class, they'll just focus on that one class rather than taking a new credit. So scenario 2 has 2 options, and we'll talk about both of those. And then scenario 3 is for all the students that have 2 classes or fewer at Mastery. So if they have 2 classes or fewer at Mastery, they're going to need to take 2 recovery classes during JTerm. And that's different than the other building, so we'll talk about that. So scenario 1, if you have Mastery in all 4 of your classes, students are going to be offered the opportunity to take a new credit. And that new credit is Introduction to Fine Art. It's a high school art credit. It's a requirement for graduation. It's going to be taught by Marla Baker. She is the art teacher at the other building, and she's taught art there since I've been there, and she's great at it, and she's fantastic, and we are very lucky to have her come over and teach that class. But it would be taught here. Students would be here in our building and virtually connecting with her, and she's going to come over here to teach that class. Yes?
Is there a materials fee associated with that?
I believe there is a small materials fee. I don't know what it is, but it can be paid through PowerSchool, just like laptop fees. It can be paid, in person with check, cash, whatever. But that would all come out probably during that first week of class, what that is. Yes, ma'am.
Is this a half credit or full credit?
It is a full credit art class. And one of the questions that came up in the previous session was, what if I already have an art credit? I took it in middle school. I have a middle school art credit. If the credit you took in middle school does count as a high school art class, Mrs. Pace has talked to me about the possibility for students to take another class at the other building. So if students have mastered all 4 of their classes and already have an art credit, there is a possibility of maybe taking a class at the other building. Now, we have to be careful with that, though, because if we let them take like English 10 or Algebra 2, something like that, then they're going to be 1 class ahead of what I'm able to offer in the spring semester. So we just have to be careful on which classes we offer. We also had a question about robotics class. The other building has a robotics class that students can take for credit. That's a possibility that we're looking at as well for this JTerm for students. So now, scenario 2, students have mastery in 3 out of 4 classes. Well, if you have mastery in 3 out of 4 classes and you have a 75% or higher, essentially your teacher approved for an independent study in the 4th class, then you will be allowed to take 1 new credit and you'll finish up your other credit through independent study. So you'd still meet in person 2 days a week, Monday, Thursday. You'd be here on Wednesdays for independent studies to finish up that 4th class, and then you'd meet virtually Tuesday, Friday. So scenario 2, option A, you still finish JTerm with 5 credits, just like somebody who mastered all 4 of their classes first semester. And please feel free to stop and ask questions anytime if you have any. So now we're at option B for scenario 2, where you've mastered 3 out of 4 classes, but you really bombed that 4th class. So if you really bombed that 4th class, we're going to ask you to focus your attention, all of JTerm, on that 4th class. So you'll take 1 recovery course rather than 2. You'll meet for that class all day when you're here, and all day virtual days, and you'll focus on remediating that class and getting that class to mastery. So, and that's more typical of the other building, where they only take 1 class the whole time. Option or scenario 3, if you have mastery in 2 classes or fewer, then you're going to take 2 recovery courses. The recovery courses that we're going to offer are going to be Algebra 1, English 9, Energy and Matter, and Exploring Computer Science. So the only 2 classes that we're teaching right now that we're not going to offer recovery for during JTerm are Biology and Geometry, because those students are already a little bit ahead of everyone anyway. I don't have enough teachers to teach those recovery classes as well during JTerm, so we're going to let those students recover one of those classes during spring semester when everyone else would be taking it. So if a student doesn't master biology or doesn't master geometry this semester, they can recover it during the spring rather than during JTerm. Now, if a student masters 2 classes or fewer, they're going to have 2 recovery classes. They'll still meet in person all day on Monday and Thursday. They'll still have independent studies on Wednesday. They'll still meet virtually on Tuesday and Friday. But instead of being in the same class all day, they're going to be in 1 class in the morning, another class in the afternoon. And we can do that because they've already met the seat hours requirement by taking the class first semester. So they don't have to have a specific number of hours in the class again in order to get the credit because they've already done that. So then they're able to focus on relearning, reworking content that they weren't strong with the first time they took it. And then that will help them remediate and recover that class during JTerm, so that way they finish up with as many credits as possible at the end of JTerm. It is possible for a student who only masters one class during the first semester to master 3 classes during JTerm, 2 through recovery and 1 through independent study, and still end JTerm with 4 credits, which is more than they would have had the option to had we only done 1 recovery course. So that's why I kind of set JTerm up a little bit differently than the other building, because it's going to help more of our students if we do it this way. The key thing to remember about this, though, is that this is just my plan right now. It could change based on where the students' grades finish up in December. So nothing's going to be set in stone or concrete until final grades come in that third week in December. And students wouldn't find out what their JTerm class was or classes were until sometime over break. So teachers are going to have the option and have the ability to look at the scheduling that I do over break and make any recommendations to me that they see that I missed. So if I have a student in a recovery course that only needs to be in an independent study, they can let me know that so that way I can adjust the schedule. So it's not just going to be my eyes on the scheduling. We're going to have teacher input as well. So we'll take into account teacher input from, feedback from how they're doing in their courses first semester, transcripts and credits from previous schools will be taken into account, and individual scheduling will happen for JTerm just like it does for every other semester here at Metro. Question?
It's independent study.
Uh-huh.
It's like 8 to 2:30, so there is a teacher available for them to
Correct.
get in.
Yep.
Help if they need
So it's the way one of my teachers put it in a really great way, I think. He said independent study seems like an extended office hours session. So when students come to office hours, they're working on independent things based on what they need to fix. So independent study will work the same way. Students are going to be working on what they need to fix specific to their grade, specific to them, but there's going to be a teacher in the room to facilitate that help. So they'll be able to help, student A with, writing a thesis statement, and student B with, properly referencing, texts in his paper. So everybody's going to be on their own piece to fix what they need to fix for their class.
I have a question, not about what you have here,
Sure.
but you, in your parent update,
Yeah.
you said the weekly,
Yeah.
you were saying JTerm was available for new students.
Yes.
So how would that work for them? I have 2 people in mind.
So,
to some of this flyers.
yeah, if we have new students enroll during JTerm, they would take the new art class. They would take a new credit course. So that way they could earn 1 credit during JTerm. And then they would start spring semester with 4 classes just like everyone else. Yes, sir.
So would they take like algebra 1 and stuff like that, or like our course is this for this fall, or would they take spring courses like geometry and stuff like that?
So they would be able. They would take what they need. So the spring semester is going to have some new courses, but it's also going to have some of the same courses that we have now, because there are going to be some students that still need more time to finish those classes. So where Mrs. Koob right now teaches 3 algebra 1s and 1 geometry, she might teach 2 geometry, 1 algebra 1 and 1 algebra 2 next time, or something like that. So the course offerings in the spring are going to change based on how students finish up fall semester and JTerm.
Okay.
Now, if the kid child still has why? It's just not.
Just not getting it. Yep.
It's just not getting it. What does that child do? Even in the spring, there.
Sure. So we have after spring semester, we have summer recovery. So during summer, students are still able to recover classes that they took.
Is that cost?
No cost to anybody. The teachers, that's in their contract. They're going to teach a summer recovery class no matter what. So students don't have to pay for that. Students are able to recover a course that they took in the fall semester. They're able to recover a course they took during J-term. They're able to recover a course they took during spring semester. So as long as they can make the sessions, they can earn the recovery credit. So a similar question came up during the 3 o'clock session was, what happens to their grades? Well, their grade stays with them. So the percentage in the grade gets stored in PowerSchool, and that stays there forever. So if a student doesn't master a class this year, they can still come back and work on that class next year and still work towards mastery. So anything over a 60%, essentially anything over 59, so a 60 or above, counts as a credit towards graduation for the state of Ohio, but not necessarily towards a credit for Metro, because we're asking you to get a 90. So they still have credit, and that still stays there, but we ask them to continue working on that until they get to a 90. So even if they don't pass it this year, they have the option to work on that next year, and they'll continue to do that until they pass. Other questions?
There are state tests that
Yes.
high schoolers
Yes.
have to master.
Yep.
As they-
So there's actually the state tests have changed in the last 2 years. It used to be the OGT, where students had to earn a certain score on the OGT in order to graduate. Now they've gone to end of course tests. So during certain courses, those courses are English 9, English 10, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Biology, American History, and American Government. So there's 8 different tests that students are going to take when they take the course. And they have to earn a certain number of points. The point total that they need for graduation is 18. So based on their score, they get a performance level, which relates to the same performance levels that were used on the OGT. So if you are advanced, which is the highest level you can get, that earns you 5 points for that test. If you're accelerated, it earns you 4 points for that test. If you're proficient, you get 3 points, so on and so forth down the row. So the requirements are you get 18 total on all of those tests, and you have to get at least a 2 on each of those. So you have to take every test, and you have to score more than a 2, but you only have to have accumulated total of 18 points. And we're actually going to start do our first round of state testing the second week in December, the second week back.
So that's what those are.
Correct. Yep. So unfortunately, December is kind of full of tests with state testing, and then we have our final exams that we give here the week after that, and those are ACT Quality Core exams. And those ACT Quality Core exams are able to help students predict scores on the ACT test, for college entrance. Other questions I can answer tonight?
So if they've mastered all 4, then they do not have a Wednesday independent study session.
They don't have a Wednesday independent study session, but they do still have to check in. So they'll either check in with their advisor via Blue Quill, email, an assignment that their advisor asked them to do, or something. But they'll be working on something on Wednesdays. They unfortunately aren't able to have the day off. They do need to check in.
They do not have to be physically here.
They do not have to be physically here. Correct. That would be like an extra virtual day for those students that master everything. And that's also a point of clarification for those of you that saw the 3 o'clock session.
The virtual days.
Yes.
There seems to be a lot of problems with getting.
We have, that's one of the reasons that we have done the test days so far. This past one on Tuesday went much, much, much better. So I believe all the bugs are worked out, and we don't have another one scheduled until J-term, but we have every confidence that Franklin has corrected the issues that we saw the first few times. So if we do have any, we'll be able to work those out pretty quick because there's not that many left.
Because when Shahid Tuesday, first he couldn't get in, and I didn't see anything, so I'm like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be, blah blah blah. And he's like, I emailed everybody to tell them I couldn't see anyone.
Yep.
Couldn't get in. So I've just gone on Blue Quills, and he's explaining, and I'm like, okay, I'm just making certain.
Yeah.
What you're supposed to be
He did.
doing.
That's exactly what we asked them to do. If they couldn't get in, we asked them to email their teachers to check in and say, hey, I'm having technical difficulties. and ask what they needed to do. And as long as he was working on the assignments he was supposed to, he did everything he was supposed to.
And another time, I could see the teacher's face. I could hear the teacher talking.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, it works sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but I don't know how it decides when it works and when it doesn't. But I believe we worked out a lot more of the bugs this time. So, all right, you guys have any other questions? All right, thanks for coming. I appreciate it.